I was having a conversation with someone yesterday, and I pointed out, I said, look, Hamas is what Israel made them, right? Like you can't treat people in a certain way and then expect those people to be lemon-liked. They're responding in kind. When you see them make this argument that it was okay to kill 70 people and blow up an apartment building to get one guy, okay, that is the argument that you've made, right? That's the standard that you've set. And so if somebody blows up something, kills 50 Israelis to get one guy, okay, then you've set that argument when your actions. No, I understand what you're saying. It's not an advocation of this. It's not like, oh yeah, this is great. All of this is disgusting, but this is a standard that they're effectively setting with their behavior. And I want to bring in something else. You pointed out that Donald Trump is humiliating the U.S. and Western values, quote unquote, in Saudi Arabia. Look at this. He's shaking hands with his head chopper. This man has chopped the heads off Americans, by the way. And look at this. He's over there glad-handing him, anointing him, sitting there with one of the quisling governments that stood by as this genocide takes place on their doorstep. And to make this even more ludicrous, you get this statement from Trump on the airplane talking about Jolani, head chopper.
How did you find the Syrian president?
Right. I think very good. Young, attractive guy, tough guy. You know, strong pass.
Yeah, strong pass, chopping off heads with the hands that you effectively shaking his hand with. This is while they go out and murder en masse Alawites, Christians, the minorities communities, these fascist dogs that are in Syria right now doing this, as Donald Trump shakes his hand and says, look at the big buildings. You people are the picture of stability in the Middle East. Oh, those horrible people in Hamas, those horrible people in Iran. They just want to keep chaos going. Give me your take on that. That clip is so depraved that it is really hard to put into context with words on how depraved that clip is. Give me your take.
Yeah, so obviously our viewers that are American must understand that every American soldier killed by ISIS or Al-Qaeda in Syria, in Iraq, over the last 20 years, was sacrificed by the American leaders on purpose. Because the vast majority of attacks by ISIS and Al-Qaeda, we're talking about 99 point something percent of them, were all directed towards other Arabs in the region. You know, Shia, Sunni, Christian, Alawite, Druze, Assyrian, you know, whatever you want. They were the target. The real ones that fought the Americans in Iraq were what now we know as the Popular Mobilization Units and Hezbollah Iraq. Those are the ones that truly fought a military battle against the American occupation in Iraq and defeated it. Whatever actions we saw by ISIS or Al-Qaeda against the American presence in Syria and Iraq were directed and ordered by their handlers in the CIA and Mossad to give some legitimacy to ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Remember, this guy, Al-Jolani, was the second in command of ISIS under al-Baghdadi. And he supposedly went to Iraq to fight American occupation. And today he's sitting with the American president, shaking hands, the same American president that's not only occupying Iraq, but also occupying the oil fields of Syria. So that should tell everyone that is watching clearly that these are not enemies, these are compatriots in the fascist scheme. Okay, and this man, Al-Jolani, has provided the best service to the United States and imperialism and Zionism and Wahhabism that it can ever imagine. The United States has achieved the unachievable, taking down the two oldest capitals of the Arabic world and Muslim world, Damascus and Baghdad. After 100 years of attempts at occupying them, finally done at the hands of these butchers that are, we're told, are Muslim and Arab, which it seems clearly they're not. So that's very important for everybody to understand that is American and watching. Now, why would this be a humiliation? Because the United States has played for the last 30 somewhat years this game of pretending that these Wahhabi death squads are not its tools. It had to play that propaganda in order to fool not only its own populations, but the populations in the Arabic and Muslim world who may have, some of them, fell to the idea that, yeah, Al-Qaeda is anti-American, I'm gonna cheer for them. ISIS is anti-American, I'm gonna cheer for them. I'm not gonna cheer for a Hezbollah because they're Shia. You see? Now, the cards have all been laid bare. Okay? Everybody who lied to themselves and to the public over the last 15 years, for instance, about the war in Syria, now cannot lie anymore. They have to cheer for ISIS and Al-Qaeda openly. They have to cheer for American occupation of Syria and its resources openly in order to maintain their line. It makes things clearer for everybody. Similarly, what just happened with the Saudis and Qataris and Emiratis being milked like a cow openly again. This is a moment where the United States is not leaving a path to return back from what it just did, to sign the largest deal, weapons deal in its history to the Saudis, or to sign the biggest deal of Boeing jets in its history to Qatar. Who the hell wants to fly? Qatar doesn't need these many jets, okay, for its airline. It doesn't fly, to every place in the world.
It's a tiny country. It's a tiny, tiny country. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So they're being shaken down, and especially with Boeing, for instance, as it's almost at the edge of bankruptcy. Not even American Airlines want to buy its jets. European companies are buying Airbus. The rest of the world is starting to buy Chinese, Russian, and Iranian, commercial jets, and including Brazilian. So the market is dying. These guys are being shaken down to take the stock that is stuck on the tarmac that nobody wants to buy by force. And yes, so this is all, actually the United States continuing to go down the cliff, and it can't pull itself out of it.
That is a stunning moment. That handshake and him effectively saying tough history when the history of Jolani is well known. Oh, that is a mind-blowing moment. And the media, of course, in the United States, yada, yada, past this. Like, meaning the media in the US ignores the fact that the guy's a terrorist, ignores the fact that the guy was killing Americans, ignored the fact that the guy was chopping off heads, ignores it completely. Trump shakes his hand. He's the new president of Syria. He's been anointed. That's all there is. 2 minutes of memory, and they move on like nothing's taken place. And you have them congratulating Donald Trump for Middle East peace talks. And with the bonus of he's shunning Israel, so he didn't stop by Israel. Isn't that amazing? Like, all of this stuff is just propaganda that's put into the air and put into the water that people drink and consume. It's like, oh, Trump is shaking hands with the president of Syria. Oh, that's great. Oh, Trump is making deals with the Middle East. Wow, he's gotten all of this investment. This is amazing. Wow, he's shunning Israel. He doesn't like Israel. He didn't even stop by Israel. When the reality of it is, A, they're committing a genocide with the U.S. approval and consent. B, that guy is a monster, is an animal that was literally chopping off hands. Hands is covered in blood. And yet he's been anointed by Trump. And I think the truth of the matter is, it's almost like this is the culmination of 20 years of work to overthrow and destroy the Syrian government, with that handshake being, hey, we're going to lift sanctions. We're now going to give you the support that you need. We're going to make Syria into whatever image that we want Syria to make. That's what that handshake meant. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong in this.
Yes, and I would like to note that Syria was the first country in after World War II, not only to exit through armed revolution, colonial occupation of the British and the French, and that's something probably also people don't understand, that during World War II, the British occupied Syria and Lebanon from the Vichy regime of France. And actually, in the end, Syria fought the British to get its independence in 1942. But to get back to this point, Syria was the first country to also suffer an attempted CIA coup before the CIA was called a CIA. So it's the first country that the United States attempted to intervene in to do regime change, even before the attempted or the coup in Iran against Mossadegh in 1956. So in 1942, before there was such a thing called the CIA, the nucleus of the CIA attempted a coup in Syria, and that was followed by 7 coups, okay, between 1942 and finally the coming of Hafez al-Assad, in 1970, somewhat, that there was 7 coups organized by the CIA, the French intelligence, the British intelligence, and so Syria has always been one of the primary targets of imperialist machinations. Okay, now in terms of this supposed, kerfuffle or fallout between Netanyahu and Trump, this is all theatrics. Why? On the one hand, the Saudis and the Emiratis and the Qataris that are being shaken down need to look like their money is buying them something. Okay? So its number one target of this propaganda is the Arabic public in those countries, that you look, your Arab leaders can actually have influence with the emperor. Okay? They can buy American politicians like the Zionists. You see, we can play the game. Arabs don't need to be a revolutionary. They just have to copy the Zionists, I have my cat here. I'm just going to push her out because she decided that she...
You're perfectly fine. It's like the cat gets involved. Just as we were pointing out, the OSS, Office of Special Services, before the CIA. Yeah.
Yes. So that's the thing. The other thing is, look, the money of the Saudis and Qataris and Emiratis is already under the disposal of the Americans. Every day, the money of the Arab Gulf oil and gas is being looted. Okay, it's all put in American and British banks, all of it, and so it's not like the American presidents are not looting this money every year. They are. They just are now doing a presentation of it because Trump needed to look like he's getting something extra. Not $1 that the Qataris or Emiratis or Saudis have, they can spend as they wish. Okay, for the most part, the Arabic, oil and gas has been the savior of Western economies for the last 60 years, at least. Okay, there's all this black money that has been dumped into one president calls Saudi, says, hey, I'm moving some of this money to build some bridges here, do this, that here. And of course, the last time they built bridges in the United States is, I don't know when. But so this is all theatrics. These are house slaves. They're kept in power with drugs and prostitution and an army of Western soldiers and mercenaries around them to protect them. That's the whole reality of the Gulf monarchs. And they're allowed to spend enough to make them look like they're, in a better situation. In most of the Gulf countries, they're giving direct salaries to the populations, inflating their realities, except in Saudi Arabia. By the way, there's mass poverty in Saudi. If people don't know this, there's millions of homeless people in Saudi Arabia, not hundreds of thousands, millions. And this is actually why Saudi is the weakest point of all of this Gulf system that the Americans and the British built, because it's actually a big population, 30 somewhat million. So the percentage of the money being looted by the West is too high for such a high population number. But in Qatar, when it's a couple 100,000 citizens, no matter how much you loot of the money as the West, you still have enough trickle down to the population.
So you make a really good point that the only reason that and by the way, Trump made that exact same point, saying that the only reason these governments are in power is because the U.S. allows them to be in power and offers them protection. And if it wasn't for the U.S., that they would effectively collapse. I think he said this within the first time he was in office. Now, they're the pillar of stability. They're the greatest thing. And these other thugs and whatever he was going after is the thing that's effectively destroying the Middle East. What happens to Syria from here? I mean, Donald Trump removed the sanctions. You had Syrians celebrating in the streets. And I would imagine they would celebrate, right? Sanctions are an act of war. They were damaging, destroying the country for years for the sole purpose of doing what they just accomplished. But Jolani is effectively selling off Syria to Trump. So American companies are going to come in, more likely than not. There's talk about balkanizing it. It's already been balkanized. Israel has taken part of it. Turkey has taken part of it. What happens from here on out going forward?
Well, Syria is not an easy bite to swallow. Not for the Americans and not for any empire that preceded them. There's too much historical record in the Syrian people over those 12,000 years since the building of Damascus and Aleppo, the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world, to just shake it off so easily. And look, although I am anti-Jolani, anti-ISIS, anti-Al-Qaeda, I would never wish for the sanctions to continue in Syria. These are my people. I saw the results of these sanctions that are war crimes and crimes against humanity that are meant to bring people to their knees in order to facilitate the regime change. And I believe that the minute there is a better living condition for the Syrians, that is when we will begin to see a more sustained resistance to the Jolani presence and the American occupation. People are right now starving, kind of almost. So it's hard for them to resist after 15 years of this sanctioned regime. So I want them to have a respite so they can begin resisting. I don't know how this will develop, but we're already seeing, of course, armed resistance in the coast, armed resistance in the south. And the minute we see beginnings of armed resistance in the two major cities, Aleppo and Damascus, that over 2/3 of the population of Syria are in, that's when things will get serious. There's no way for these Wahhabi death squads, especially all their foreign fighters, to continue occupying these cities and that there will be no physical reaction. Okay. The elite, financial and political and religious elite in those two cities will not allow themselves to be ruled by Uyghurs and Turkmens and Chechens and Mossad agents, that are probably, like Jolani is probably Israeli, Arabized, like before him al-Baghdadi and before him Cohen in the 1970s. So this is a given to me. How it will come, when it will come, I don't know. I can't predict that. And I think one thing that we can maybe time those situations is about how stable Lebanon is. If Lebanon explodes into a full war with a new invasion by the Israelis, which is very probable, then I think that will accelerate whatever resistance being born in Syria, because it will just spill very fast. It's not going to be that the Israelis enter Lebanon and somehow there will be no mass migration into Syria, opposite migration, which will bring with it the resistance into Syria. If they try to close the borders on Lebanese as they're trying to slaughter Lebanon, I think we will see a direct fight. Look, the Zionists and the Americans behind them, because they are constantly choosing the maximalist position in their warfare, this is also laying out maximalist trajectory of reactions and actions by the resistance, whether they want it or not. And this is, kind of the same when we started here talking about the kind of warfare that is now normalized by the imperialists, how it will normalize a similar kind of warfare by the resistance. Similarly, a maximalist zero-sum game being enforced on the ground in Lebanon will lead to a maximalist positionality in the whole region.
But what they're hoping is that with the sanctions removed, the economy gets going to some degree. And with an economy getting going, that the public will be okay with the new government, effectively saying, hey, this new government is now ensuring that you're getting higher wages and that you're getting more money and that more items are coming into the country. Aren't you happy with this new fascist, government? I mean, granted, this argument is kind of difficult to make, right? Because you've taken a country that was multicultural for decades and overnight turned it into this kind of fascist theocracy regime, which, if that was America, like, I don't know how we would accept that. If overnight, all of a sudden, everybody in this country is Christian, everybody must go to church, everybody must worship this one God, everybody must, porn is gone, gambling is gone, all of these things that you've become accustomed to in America are gone, no cigarettes, you can't play chess like they do in Afghanistan. I don't know how we would accept that, but that's effectively what we're cheering in Syria. And so would a better economy be okay, like make that okay? I don't think it would, but you would know it better than I would.
Yeah, so look at the contradiction of what they're trying to do economically. Okay, on the one hand, they lifted these sanctions. On the other, as you said, they are selling out everything in Syria, which means there will be no jobs. Okay, if there's no factories running because the market is flooded by purposefully, at cost prices of Turkish products, where's the jobs? If all the police and military is filled by Wahhabi death squads from around the world, where's the jobs? If all the women are banned from the medical field and the judicial system, where are the jobs? So they will be, if all the oil fields, and by the way, there's cobalt in Syria, that Syria was not part of the war on Syria, was to stop Syria from pulling the cobalt and or the gas and oil that is in the Mediterranean, which are the biggest oil and gas fields in the whole Eastern Mediterranean. Syria has more oil and gas across its coast, then Turkey, Greece, Cyprus, Israel, Egypt, okay? It will be, and they will not be allowed to, they weren't allowed even by the Russians, and this is part of the problem. The Russians didn't allow the Syrians to pull out that gas and oil from the Mediterranean. But imagine if none of those give you jobs, and all the gas and oil and cobalt and cement and wheat and cotton of Syria is just being exported by the loot of the Wahhabi death squads and the Turks and the Americans and the Israelis. What money is going to be in the market, right? So there's going to be a limit to how much, betterment of life conditions the average Syrian will see because of how the Jolani and behind him, the Americans and the Israelis are reformulating the state.
Laith, fantastic breakdown. Really, honestly, you are one of the best analysts on the subject matter. You've been right in your take on this stuff, and we will see how it unfolds. I really appreciate you joining me. Just so the audience, to give the bio, Laith Marof. He is an award-winning multimedia producer and media policy law consultant focused on issues of liberation and decolonization from indigenous nations to Arab peoples and building broadcasting capabilities for misrepresented and underrepresented communities in the world. You can check him out at Free Palestine TV. Laith, where else can people find you, by the way?
Yes, the website is freepalestine.video. We're doing almost daily reports from
that was TV.
yeah,
Sorry.
so from South Lebanon and Palestine, and we're on X at TV Free Palestine, on YouTube and many other platforms. You can find all the links to our social media on our website, freepalestine.video. We just did a report from South Lebanon around the Hula Valley. We were following Israeli drones trying to conduct warfare, and we found ourselves multiple times being the only journalists on the scene.
Oh, Laith, please be careful. They are murdering journalists left and right.
Yes, and yesterday they were firing on journalists, sniper fire from an illegal Israeli occupation base just beside the UNIFIL base in the Hula Valley, just beside them, and the UNIFIL were just letting them shoot at the journalist.
When they bombed that hospital, part of the rationale that people believe is to kill the journalist that was in that hospital. And, he had written, I think it was like an article or something where he was being interviewed. And he said, they could kill me here. There's nothing to stop them from doing it. And damned if they didn't do it.
Yes, they had tried assassinating him before, and he was, crippled. He was amputated because of that attempt. And when he was in the hospital, he said that he believes that Israelis will try to assassinate him inside the hospital. And that's what they did. They flew a drone into the hospital, into his room, hitting him on his bed. And, to go back to this normalization, if it's normal to hunt journalists in their hospital beds in Palestine and or here in Lebanon, wouldn't it be normal then to go after the CEO of the BBC or PBS or CNN or journalists on the ground here, like whoever they are? Aren't they legitimate targets from BBC and world news agencies that are propagating, support for genocide? This is, I think, where, everybody that's watching has to understand what kind of world we live in now and who's allowing this kind of world to be. And, this is the future, not only the reality now, but this is how it's going to be for as long as the Western Empire, the Zionist Empire, it can do whatever it wants to in such ways.
See, in their minds, though, they think propaganda is enough to deter that. Like, it's like Hunger Games, right? This was described yesterday as Hunger Games, where they would do something, and they would say, hey, it is okay to kill 70 people, innocent civilians, in order to get one. But if you do it, oh, that's outrageous. They can't, they're barbaric, they're terrorists, they're et cetera, et cetera. But it's okay when they do it. I mean, I'm not going to keep you, I'm sorry. We watched the leaks where they were talking about bombing a house to get one person. And it's like, okay, so that is your standard. So how are you calling these other people terrorists when they do this something similar that you are doing? In fact, you're doing it even more so. It's just, I agree with you. I guess that's my point. You have a fantastic day, man. Please be safe.
All right.
You are another award winner. You deserve it. You are putting your body out on the line for it.
Thank
God
you.
bless you, man. Be safe.
Talk to you soon.
Have a good one.